Hey guys, Peter here. We are still very much in isolation all over the world, but that doesn't stop us from bringing you some more awesome content and good episodes. So today's guests in the podcast are Kiren Newadj and Rosemary El Sharouni. These two guys have been making impact on the European BJJ scene for quite a while now through their respective projects. Kiren has co-founded our BJJ Academy Amsterdam, which is a very much successful academy, and we spoke about the various principles Kiren and his team have utilized on the way to this success. He also co-founded a camp which is called the Royal Camp, another very successful venture which brings a lot of high-level European talent, actually not only European but worldwide talent, into one place on an annual basis. I'm pretty sure after the whole pandemic finishes, we'll see more editions of this camp in the coming years. Rose, in turn, has been driving the Ladies Only BJJ movement for the past couple of years through various written articles, blog posts, social media, and also over the last couple of years she has organized a Ladies Only BJJ camp, also very, very successful, quite busy. The last edition was a couple of months ago, drew a lot of interest from the ladies community in Europe, and again this will be something that will perpetuate in the coming years, no doubt. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on our YouTube channel and on our social media at all_jiu-jitsu. Kiren and Rose, thanks very much for joining All Jiu-Jitsu podcast. So let's get started a little bit with with your kind of background and how you got started. So we're going to be talking about a few things. So your academy, BJJ Academy Amsterdam, right? So we have then the Royal Camp and the Ladies Only Camp. So three things, and maybe some couple other things will creep in as we talk, and more questions will come up. But let's start with the kind of the base, which is, I presume, the academy, right? So how did you guys get started with the academy?
Actually, I started it together with another friend of mine, Remo, after like a fallout with our previous team. A group of friends and me, we started training with, first we didn't have a gym, so we were kind of like Ronins, like samurais. We could use the dojo from a university gym where we were also teaching, so that was quite nice, because they have a really nice dojo, a huge mat area, but it's a university sports center, so it's shared with 50 other sports, and the same dojo is being used by karate and taekwondo people. So we couldn't use it every day. So that's when we started to get the idea of having our own space where we can train and set things up. And yeah, so it's me and Remo. We took the risk and initiative of finding a dedicated space and where we could train every day, and started teaching alongside of it, because we need to afford it. That's kind of how it started rolling. That was back in 2014. I was a blue belt, not a fresh blue belt, almost like 2.5 years into my blue belt, 2 years, something like that. And I organized previously a seminar with Lucas Leitch and Bushesha, so I kind of had a connection with the Checkmat team. And so I contacted them and see if we could be affiliated with Checkmat, and they got us along inside the team. And that's how our academy got affiliated with Checkmat as well. And now it's almost 5.5 years that we have the academy, and over time it has grown, and that's kind of it, I think, to summarize everything.
That's pretty good. It's very, very similar story to ours, I guess. That's why this kind of added an extra curiosity for me, because we started in a similar circumstances where we left our previous gym and then started our own one, almost, by necessity, by need, right? The circumstances have forced it. So what I personally battled with is a lot of doubt, right? Self-doubt, especially because like I was a purple belt at the time, you were a blue belt. So how did that kind of mind, or did that factor in at all into your decision making? So how can I run an academy if I'm only a blue belt? I know the reason I'm asking is because I had these doubts when I was a purple belt. So how was it for you?
Well, the jiu-jitsu scene back in Amsterdam back in 2014 wasn't that big. Like there weren't many other higher belts around. I think maybe 2 or 3 other black belts, and also none of them, maybe one, was only running full time. Not every gym is running full time at the moment, and that's even still like that. So some schools just teach 2 nights per evening, 3 nights per evening. So yeah, and we were like really into it, really passionate about jiu-jitsu, and we got feedback from the university where we were teaching at the University Academy, and also our group of friends. They were like, hey, you are training a lot, and they liked the techniques, and they were kind of like saying like, yeah, if we have our own space or our own academy. So they gave positive feedback, and also I could see that they enjoyed the techniques, they liked it, and yeah, so that didn't stop us, and we were like, okay, let's just run it.
Yeah, so the positive feedback for sure kind of gave you some encouragement then.
And also that the market wasn't like saturated with black belts. If we would have like 30 other black belts in town, would be different. Probably I would find a different school then, but there were only 2 or 3 other black belts.
And why do you think that is in Amsterdam? Because Amsterdam is such a developed city. So you see, like in Dublin, for example, we have like tens of schools around, loads of black belts. So why do you think in Amsterdam the scene is relatively kind of low-key?
I think jiu-jitsu in general is still like a growing sport in Europe, and especially in Amsterdam, I think it entered around 2006, and then it slowly started to grow. From 2010, you could see a bigger growth, but they're more focused on kickboxing. We're famous for Dutch kickboxing, and judo is also quite big. So those are the main martial arts sports, I would say. And other than that, Dutch people are also quite down to earth. So you won't find people really fast here that will say like, I'm going to be full-time jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu is my life. It's like a big passion, but everybody still sees it as a hobby, like jiu-jitsu. So I think that's why it's we don't have too many black belts, because there weren't a lot of full-time athletes or people who would go abroad and do training camps or spend 2 years outside of Europe to train, and we barely have those people.
And when you
in Amsterdam, like the Amsterdam jiu-jitsu scene does not.
And you guys, when you started out, did you have already a group, kind of a starting group that joined with you and kind of became your students?
Yes. So we had a group of friends that joined, and then we also had students at the university gym where we were teaching. We had around 20 students over there, but the university gym is offering like student fees, and we had to offer, which was like super cheap if you're a student and you make a one-time payment and you can train the whole year. And with our academy, we had to ask like monthly fees, and so not everybody from the university gym joined, and that was a bit like against expectations. So in the beginning, we were with only 4 people. That's about it.
Yeah, so obviously kind of the model and people's perception is different, right? Is, being a student and you can pay one-time fee and be sorted for a year, and then having to pay monthly fees different. So how then have you learned, or like what have you learned in the first kind of few months of running a business, because it became the business then? So like, have you set up like a company, or was it like running, or is it a recognized sport so you can run it like a sports organization? So how does it work in the Netherlands?
So we had to set it up as a company, and we did have a business plan and certain expectations about things. But the first few months were tough. Actually, the first year, because we were also still blue belts. So we went looking on how to grow the gym, and what we did was focus a lot on our marketing. How could we put the academy out there? And that became our main goal, to put the academy at the first place, and not so much an emphasis on the instructors, like, hey, I'm 20 times champion in this and this. So what we did is we built like a clean website with all the information. There was information about the sport of jiu-jitsu, how many classes we're offering. We had clear photos of our academy, because we set up a new academy from scratch, which was also one of the first in Amsterdam. Like I said before, other gyms were running just like renting a space for 2 nights per week or 3 nights per week. And we had our dedicated space. We invested, like we had zebra mats. So it was like a really good looking academy. And I think that was our advantage to get people to our. So we put a focus on that in our marketing. And we didn't say like, we're blue belts and I have these and these skills, I'm known for this. So we just put the sport central, the academy central, so that people know, okay, I want to train jiu-jitsu and this looks like a nice place. And once they enter the academy, the door, then that's where you can like really close them and talk to them and share the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's funny because for a lot of people starting out, it almost doesn't make much of a difference like who the instructor is, because they just want to go and try something. Because I think once people train jiu-jitsu, that's when they start kind of digging into the details, right? Or who the instructor, what they want, and this and that. But for somebody starting out from scratch, they just want to start training. Like, you know, if the academy looks nice, they see some good photos and it's well presented, they feel safe to get started.
Yeah, so exactly. And also, we knew we had like good techniques to share with people because of our previous feedback from our friends and students at the university. So they really enjoyed it when we were teaching. So with new people, once we were sharing our techniques and teaching them, they actually liked it. So we could also convince them. And I rolled with everybody. So they were like, okay, he's a blue belt, but I like his teaching style. There's also a really welcoming atmosphere in the academy. That's also really important. So people were convinced by that. But if I would write that on the website, like I'm really skilled in this and that, then they see like a blue belt. I don't know. Isn't black belt higher or purple belt? But once they get the experience, they get to meet you also as a person, then that's what's keeping them. And that's what makes them join the academy. Like they like the instructor, the techniques are good. And that was the way to close them.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we had this conversation in one of the previous episodes, I think, with Emilia, and we were talking about the purpose of communication, right? Whether it's social media or website or something, you need to recognize who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, right? Because if you want to, boost your ego and talk about yourself so much, it's like you kind of get satisfaction yourself. Like, look how good I am, but that doesn't necessarily play into people coming into your academy. And then the communication kind of changes then once they do get into your academy. So now you can address them face to face. You can use other techniques, let's say, for a sale from a business perspective, right? You can actually show them the atmosphere. The atmosphere becomes your main selling point and the quality of technique and stuff. But if you start talking about that prematurely almost, then they might actually look elsewhere. So kind of a smart funneling of
need to get them into the academy, and that's where you can really convince them. I mean, you would still need to be skilled, obviously. I mean, if you have a nice academy and you get them there, but they don't like the techniques or what you're showing, like, hey, this guy is not skilled or he doesn't know it, that also doesn't close the deal. So it's a little bit of both. But when you advertise yourselves as a blue belt, like from someone that doesn't know anything at all, then that pushes them away straight away. I think where they're probably going to look for something like, oh, wait, this guy is a black belt and so many degrees, and that marketing, like the black belt marketing, can pull them in. And there's no thing as blue belt marketing to close someone. So
yeah, that makes sense. And how things have changed over the years. So now, like, you guys are both very accomplished grapplers, jiu-jitsu players. You won a lot of tournaments. You have a lot more recognition. So you're a black belt, you're in your brown belt. So have things changed over time, or do you still follow the similar type of approach?
Well, the academy has grown over time a lot. Like I said, we started out with just friends and 4 people, and we had quite a big mat area, like 90 square meters, I think. We would still bump into each other sometimes, but I think now we had certain days where we had around 45 people on the mat in one evening. So it's grown a lot, but we kept our same core idea of making people feel welcome, make them feel involved, give high quality instructions, and I roll with everyone. So whoever asks me, like, I don't have any certain authority attitude, like, hey, you can't ask me to roll, or but in general, there's like a really friendly atmosphere in the academy. So there's never someone that would ask me challenging. Like, if that would happen, I can understand why people say, like, okay, you can't ask someone to roll, but it's always like, hey, can we roll? Or it's in good vibes. So that's what people like. They can roll with the instructor and train with everyone. And we train quite intense as well, but not that we're pushing everybody over its limit. So you get good quality rounds, but in all good vibes. And when I was a blue belt and purple belt, well, especially at blue belt, because there were a lot of local tournaments where I had a lot of people in my division. So I competed a lot at local tournaments, and that's also how people could see me compete, because they would join to the tournament, and it was kind of inspiring to the group of people that we had, our members, and that made them compete as well, without me ever having to tell a student, like, hey, I want you to compete, or this tournament is coming up, let's all go there, and you have to do it. So it's kind of inspired them to join along, and I think it's important of building up the team as well, that people felt part of it and they wanted to compete.
Yeah, so it's classic leading by example. So you can't really replicate that with just the words, right? So if you're leading the way, then people will follow.
Yeah. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things that people like, if you're leading by example, showing how it's the way you're. Even if you would fail, I mean, at first you would think, oh shit, people will think that if I lose, they will think less of me. But it's not like that, and they rather see you go out there and compete and put yourself on the line. It's inspiring, and
because that's eventually what you're preaching to them as well, right? That's what you tell your students generally. At least I do. Is like, it's not about winning. It's about going and actually testing your jiu-jitsu, is testing your character, learning a thing or two, because a competition is worth so much more than just a training session, right? And if you're only saying that, but you're not following those words yourself, it's kind of a little bit sketchy, right? It's like, well, why are you telling me to compete and test myself, whereas you yourself are just sitting comfortably on the sidelines?
Yeah. So I had it, like, we do have some competitors that want to compete more seriously. With them, I tell them to go a bit more focused and try to really implement your game and you need to set certain goals, like you want to achieve this result, then you got to work for it. But we also have a lot of like people that just compete for the fun of it, and to them I'm saying, like, yeah, go out there. It gives you a lot of feedback on your game, and you know what will work or doesn't. Because if you just roll with the same people in the academy, eventually after a while you know what they're going to do. They know your style a bit, and with tournament you get exposed to a whole different game of a person. So then you know if your techniques will work under any circumstances, or if you need to improve certain techniques. So yeah, I make like a distinction between serious competitors and the people that train for fun and want to compete alongside it as well.
And you guys have never went, so despite competing extensively and you travel around, you compete a lot, running an academy, you never went classic, like full time, when people say I'm a full-time athlete. So you're still studying, you're still working, is that right?
Yeah, I just graduated about last year, and I was doing my master's in microelectronics. So it's specialization of electrical engineering focused on chip design, what's, for example, in smartphones or tablets. And yeah, because I wanted to finish my study, just I actually like it. So that's kind of what helped me in between of not fully committing to jiu-jitsu, and also to finish my study. So I didn't give up everything for jiu-jitsu. Also, I'm a little bit older than I look. Like, I just turned most people think I'm still somewhere in my early 20s, but I turned 32 last month. So I mean, if I would be 22, maybe I would consider it more seriously into getting full-time jiu-jitsu and competing, traveling, like if I would be a 22-year-old black belt. But now I still need to get my black belt, and I'm 32, so it's not per se for me the full-time. And like I said before, also the full-time scene in Holland is not that big, so there's not a lot of people that are training or competing full-time.
But it also, first of all, I was surprised to see you in the Masters division in the Europeans. I was like, what? But the other thing is also, it depends on your goals, right? Because again, I think full-time athlete label almost attracts people to some extent, as like just saying that, but it depends on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you are able to accomplish your goals, whether it's with the academy, with the competitive career, while still maintaining your activity in something that genuinely interests you, right? You like what you're studying, the field of microelectronics seems very exciting. So why would you give up that just for the label?
Yeah, I actually had a plan if I would finish my study like super fast. It's quite a hard study, so I did a bit longer over my study, but initially I had a plan if I would finish my study really fast and I was still young, then maybe move to America, because in Silicon Valley there are a lot of jobs for me, and I was thinking like I could train there at a really high level gym and make it a bit more serious, and then still see if I can work. But then I set up the academy and things played out differently, and so that passed. But that was one of my ideas of sort of still being like not completely full-time, but more into it.
Yeah, it's just the different circumstances with work. Yeah, there are definitely more options over in the States, especially as you said in the Silicon Valley, and combining the two would be perfect. But I can also understand you from like what attracts you in kind of maintaining your academy, right? Because again, I find myself in a very, very similar circumstances. I had a lot of different plans that were related to some form of travel, with work, because I was working as well at the time for international company, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this and that and that, and then it's like, I can't leave my academy. And it's not necessarily just I can't leave it because there's nobody to teach. It's more like I'm so attached to it, like I want to be there, as much as possible. I want to invest my time into my students, so that definitely plays a lot into kind of decision making, right? Like almost kind of life decisions.
Yeah.
How
Also,
many?
I'm actually quite happy that I didn't go over there, because I went to the States, to California in 2015 to compete at the Worlds as a blue belt. And when I was there, it was actually a big disappointment. I didn't like California because I'm used to the European scene where you can just go outside, walk to some place, to a cafe, have a drink, have a coffee. Everything is within walking distance. Or if I go to the academy, I can take the metro or my bike. And when I was there, it was only cars and a lot of traffic jams. And it took long time to get to everywhere. So that was a big disappointment. And I was like, oh, without a car, you're not getting anywhere here. And I don't like to drive. So I'm actually glad that I didn't make that decision to go to California, because I don't think I would like it over there.
Yeah, especially after Amsterdam. Amsterdam's probably one of the best cities to get around without a car, and it's very different. Yeah, so it's always I think a good advice for people to literally go somewhere and test it out before you commit to something 100%, because I hear a lot of people, like especially in the fields of some form of whether it's software or microelectronics and stuff, just dreaming of going over to California because that's the business, right? You know what I mean? And you can do so much in there, and it's so attractive, especially through the lenses of social media and TV. But it could be quite a different reality outside of the actual activity, right? The daily life is different.
You just saw like snapshots of the beach and the surfing, and in my mind it was like, oh, the beach is right there. Walking to the academy will be 5 minutes, but it was like a 1 hour drive with the car. So it's not like you can go to the beach real quick and then go to the academy. Of course, it depends where your academy is, but yeah, the reality was completely different.
And I guess you get used to everything. Like, if you move over and you say, well, I could live here, doing this. But like the question is then, do you want to get used to this, or do you want to, as I said, that's why I also like Dublin. Dublin is amazing. Like I presume, objectively you could find better cities, but in Dublin, everything is walking distance pretty much. Like you can literally get around easily anywhere you want. And like my academy is like literally 5 minute walk, and I don't know anywhere else I could find the same, a big city, but still accessible by foot. So Amsterdam is probably one of those, and but pretty amazing. And then you also, like going back to your academy and the way you run it, so you've also been organizing quite a lot of seminars, right? So obviously there's a lot of checkmat guys, I think, that you invite due to affiliation, but probably a few other ones. So why did you kind of go with the relatively high volume of seminars? So what attracts you in those type of settings?
Well, me personally, I like seminars. It's and we always get like black belt competitors that have a certain game, so it's a good way to learn something, and I like to learn, always improving. So it was a good way to get access to techniques from a specialist by themselves. And of course, nowadays you can see a lot of things on the internet, on YouTube, but you don't have the interaction of asking questions, and that's the most valuable thing in a seminar. Like you could probably see the position, but being able to ask questions or the fine details of that position, or if you want to ask something about how they apply it in a match or during a certain moment, that's really valuable. And a lot of times I've just picked up a thing from a seminar and they showed like 6 different moves, but that one thing helped me out in competition, and that all made it worth it. So you always learn something really valuable. And also the group of students that we have like it's quite unique in sports to meet like the best of the best. I probably think maybe you saw that somewhere before, that they say like jiu-jitsu is one of the few sports where you get to meet your idols. Like in football, for example, there's no way you could train with Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi. Well, in jiu-jitsu, we have that possibility. So I think it's nice. And also, in a way, we are supporting the athletes as well. It's still like a growing sport. So it's also giving something back to the community of athletes. And and another thing about it that helps, it's also sort of a form of marketing, because when that athlete posts a picture of your academy, the group picture, and he has like 30,000 followers, it's a way to get your academy out there. So also from a marketing point of view, it's helping.
Yeah, and how do you pick athletes that you invite? So again, it might have changed over the years, but again, I think a lot of them are affiliated, obviously through Checkmate. But overall, what's your approach to say, okay, I want to invite this person? So why is that?
Well, it's me and my friend Remo. So we pick out athletes that we like, that have a game that fits our game or that we can learn from, because in a way, that also provides us like material to teach to our students, and it makes us better teachers and competitors as well. So we look at the skill set of the person that's coming over, of the athlete. Like, do we like that? Do we want to learn that technique? And that's how we pick it out. And then also about, is this what the group would be interested in? Can we market this black belt to our group? Will we get enough people? Because if it's only a guy that I like and the group doesn't like it, it's not going to work out. Then I would have to organize a private or something. But yeah, so mainly we look at the skill set, and if it's if we get the return on investment, if we can sell it to the group.
Yeah, because you might be able to organize. Sorry, am I muted or? You might be able to organize 1 or 2 seminars where nobody shows up, but it's not really sustainable, right? So you want obviously to recoup anything that you've committed to, in terms of obviously athletes need to get paid, and you can't just fund them out of your pocket every time.
Yeah. And sometimes we get a suggestion from the group, like, hey, we really like this athlete. We saw he's coming to Europe, and then sometimes we consider that as well. But usually the athletes that we like is also what the students like. So so far, most of the seminars have always been a success.
Nice. And then, so from the seminars, then I think a couple of years ago happened the first Royal Camp, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2018 was the first edition.
Yeah, so how did you come up with the idea for the camp, and what triggered, the idea for the camp?
Yeah, so Royal Camp, it's not just me, it's me and Remo, my partner from the academy, and Jackson. He's like our head coach of Checkmate, like our supervisor, the black belt. So it's the 3 of us that were organizing it, and we hosted summer camps and winter camps before at our academy, and there was always like a nice week of training in the summer, and people liked it. And then we were like, how can we scale it up to an international level? And that's sort of how the idea for Royal Camp came. Like, let's make it a bit bigger. The summer camps, we were already organizing it, but make it a bit bigger. We can get more athletes, more people. Yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, so just and how I presume having somebody like Jackson Souza on board helps, with the connections and making things happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he has like big network of athletes and people and brands in the jiu-jitsu scene. And over the years, our academy also has built up a network of athletes. So for the first edition of Royal Camp, we actually had a big group of people that we already worked with. They were friends from jiu-jitsu, so that helped. So that's how we organized the first edition. Like, we had Adam Wojcinski. He came to our academy when he was a brown belt, before he was famous. And so we had him. I had Paquito. I actually knew Paquito when I was a white belt and he was a blue belt. We met at a camp in Ireland. It was a Michael Lange camp. That's also where I like the idea of a camp. That was my first jiu-jitsu camp, where I went as a white belt and we trained for 1 week, just focusing on jiu-jitsu, and I improved a lot after that week. I think after that camp, I was also like winning a lot of tournaments, and Lange really showed like the details and specifics of his game, and that's always what stuck with me as well. But that's where I met Paquito, so I already had a connection with him. And who else? We had Max Lindblad. I also met him when he was a purple belt and I was a blue belt. So, and 2018 was also like a breakout year for most of them at the black belt level. They were really successful colored belts before, but that was the first time that they were as a black belt, and they were like, hey, we can put them all together. And we know that they're like good competitors. They have a good game, and they like to teach as well. So that's sort of how it started rolling.
And did you have any problems kind of selling the seminar, the camp? And what was the audience like? The people who I know there are some people traveling internationally, so from around Europe to attend. So what was the first scene like? So did you manage to kind of recoup the investment, and did you manage to get a lot of people from outside of your own academy?
Yeah, so I would say about like half of the people were from our academy, because they really wanted to join, and we had seminars before, so they always liked the idea and the camps before. And the other part were coming from abroad, but Amsterdam is really easy to reach. Like, from a lot of country, you can get a cheap flight for about 60 to 80 euros, and you're in Amsterdam. And usually people go with a group of people, or you can find an Airbnb and keep the cost relatively low. Also, we're not like asking a premium price for the camp. It's affordable. It's not the cheapest, but it's affordable. And that also plays an important role, I think. So we had to find an optimum in price and how many people do we want, and with the athletes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also what you said about the camps, the value of the camp is slightly different to the seminar, right? Because you have a little bit more time to kind of digest what you were taught and then ask more questions, and maybe, develop a particular sequence a little bit better than you just have in a quick seminar where everything is quite congested. And you also mentioned that Amsterdam is a pretty good spot for a camp because it's such a developed city, good infrastructure and everything. So how do the whole logistics work? So do you look after the people who have to come in terms of the athletes? They come fly in, they stay. Do you have to find accommodation for them? Do you help with accommodation to the people who attend the camp? So what goes into running of the camp in terms of logistics?
So we only deal with the athletes. Like, we take care of their accommodation and their travel to Amsterdam. And for the participants, we don't arrange their accommodations. We have tips because we know the city, but Amsterdam is like a really easy city. You can find accommodation everywhere. And probably people also make like a little holiday out of it. So probably they want to be located somewhere where they can go to the academy easily, but also do some sightseeing easily. So usually they'll already have a certain place in mind, so we don't want to bother them too much. They can help themselves. They know how it will play out. And it's a small city as well, and the academy is easily accessible, like easy to reach with public transport. So that also makes it easy for people to just pick out a place somewhere, a hotel, an Airbnb, and then they can do their thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of the athletes that you invite and people that are coming in, so two questions here. Do you ever have athletes that you want to get to the camp but you don't manage for whatever reason? And so how do you manage the capacity of the camp? So do you ever have to refuse admission to the camp to people, for example, if you reach maximum capacity? So do you ever deal with this type of problems?
So the concept behind Royal Camp is that we are offering like small group training. So we don't put, if there are 60 participants, we put 60 people on the mat at the same time. So we limit the classes to, I think, a max of 24 people, so that the instructor can visit like every couple and give instructions if people have questions. So it's also easier to manage for the athlete, and the quality remains high during the classes. So we are running 4 classes per day, and each participant can choose 2 out of the 4 classes. I think more than that is also a bit hard for most people. So that's like the good amount of numbers that people can do per day. Like 2 is the limit for the average jiu-jitsu practitioner. So we are basically running the classes all out the whole day. So we're there in the academy the whole day from 9 till 9. We have a small break in the afternoon. But so I would say we reached the limit around 60 people. And that's why we capped the camp. But so far we haven't. Usually that's already like really good if you can reach 60 people. So we haven't had that.
Yeah. But the key is the spacing out, and obviously some people will, again, you see different approaches even amongst the athletes when they teach the seminars. Some people will cap their attendance by whatever number of people, because then they can give quality time to those people. Some people will say, give me as many as possible, I'll take 100. And that's again quite different. So managing that capacity, I think, is quite important. Also, I guess it plays into the experience that people get out of the camp. It's a different thing being 1 out of 100 people on the mat and having interaction with the instructors versus being 1 out of 20 people on the mat, right? Or even a smaller group. So you can get a lot more attention from them, and which will help your technique and everything. And what about my other question? Have you ever had any problems with inviting somebody, any of the athletes, without any names or anything like this, but in general concept? Do you generally get people that you want to invite?
Usually with the previous 2 editions, we got all the athletes, and also for this one, everybody agreed. Most of the time we somehow have a connection, like through me, I know that athlete from before, or they came to the academy before, or Jackson knows that athlete, or he knows another black belt that knows that athlete. So usually that makes it less like strictly business, and you can negotiate a lot easier without like letting it fall apart. Most of the time they want to be part of it.
Yeah, and I guess from the outside, what it seems like, having had a chance to build the relationships, right, with all these people over time, makes it easier to operate something like a camp. And if you start something from scratch, it's like, oh, I'll just show up to the scene and I'll organize something right away. It's much harder, because then it's very much transactional, right? So it's like, okay, this
exactly, and maybe the athletes don't know that person either, or what the atmosphere will be like. If it's not a nice camp for them because they need to spend 5 days over there, then maybe they won't like it. But here they like Amsterdam, they like the academy. They most of the times they know the other instructors as well, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of your kind of overall, again, without going into any specific details, your financial management, how do you make sure, both for the academy and for the camp, do you look after everything yourselves, like the organizers, or like where does this kind of the intrinsic understanding of the finance come from to make sure that everything is above the board for you?
Yeah, so my friend is more involved with the finance. I do more the marketing and contacting the athletes. But yeah, usually we just make an overview of our expenses and how many participants we need to get, because eventually that's your only income source, the participants. So we need to weigh that out, and then how much can we offer the instructors if all the fixed expenses are gone, and like the flights, the accommodations, those are like a big expense. So once we see how much we can, how much is left over, that's how we sort of deal with that situation. Because we also try to target like a number, like 30 to 40 people is something you should reach for with the camp. If you get more, that's nice. You get a little bit more. Maybe you can pay a bit more to the athletes or invest a little bit more into next edition. But that's kind of how we deal with that.
Yeah, that again, it's makes a lot of sense in terms of you have to understand your break-even point, right? So to make sure that you're not going to the red. And roughly how many people you need and what you can do with that. So then if we move on from Royal Camp to Ladies Only Camp, Rose, tell us a little bit about that. I know my wife Sylvia went to the last edition. She was extremely happy. She was amazing, obviously. So it was yourself and Sam Cook, right? So how is that camp different in terms of organization-wise, the concept-wise, and how did it come about?
Yeah, I believe I actually had maybe 4 of your students in the last edition.
Yes, they definitely made a holiday trip out of it.
Yeah, it was really nice meeting them. So last edition was the 5th edition of the Ladies Only Camp. So I started the first one in 2016, actually also together with Sam Cook. She was a brown belt at the time. And at that time, she was the only teacher. So last year was the first time I was co-teaching. And it started mostly because I was organizing open mats for girls in Amsterdam, because there weren't that many girls training. We had about 4 regular girls in the gym. And I believe every other gym in Amsterdam had the same. So the idea was to bring everyone together for an open mat. And then from that started the idea to have a camp. So 2016 was the first edition with Sam Cook, and it was a big success. It was 25 girls who showed up, so I was really happy with that. And from that year on, I organized the camp every year. So the last one was with Sam again. In terms of organizing, I think it's never been really a big issue. I'm quite helped a lot by Kiren because I can use his gym space. So in terms of logistics, it's really easy for me. And other than that, in terms of organizing, also all the girls I've invited to teach, I know, because the female jiu-jitsu scene is not that big. So all of them I know, and all of them were happy to teach. And in terms of reaching out to women, I started social media for Ladies Only BJJ. So we are on Instagram and we have our website. And so that's also for almost 5 years ago. And I think right now we have a lot of followers that I got organically. So it's now almost 6,000 followers. And I think that also helped to the spread of Ladies Only BJJ. I think most of it comes from word of mouth, because the girls in the scene, they know each other, they like the camp, and they talk about it. But also, I think our reach on social media is pretty big.
Yeah, and so you've built quite a big community of kind of tight-knit community in a way, because if you look at it, like, let's say, a difference in two camps, right? One is kind of open to everybody, and you would think that Ladies Only is kind of a subset of that because it's like smaller population, but in a way it's a lot more tight-knit, right? Because it's a niche, like it's ladies only, right? So the girls are kind of almost dying to get this training going. And I know, as you said, like four or five of my girls from the gym went over, and they didn't need much convincing. They just needed one message exchange. It's like, yeah, signed up, going. So that was a pretty easy sell. So yeah, it's a good kind of example of having built the community, whether it's with social media or live, right? So you have your open mats running in Amsterdam, which is, I believe, building your kind of internal community in Amsterdam, and then you have your social media through Ladies Only BJJ that builds kind of an international community, pretty much. And are there any other activities that you do? So what feeds into kind of cultivating that Ladies Only concept on social media? So what else do you do there aside from kind of organizing the camp?
That's a good question. So when I was still studying, I had a lot of time traveling to the hospital because I did my rotations there. So I had a lot of time to spend time on social media, write blogs, because I think there's a lot of social media out there for male jiu-jitsu, but not so much for women's jiu-jitsu. So I started doing that because I like doing it, to write some content focused on female jiu-jitsu. So I've been doing that a lot for the past few years. And now I'm focusing more on the women's class that we've started in BJJ Academy Amsterdam. So I've been doing that for a year now, and that also, I think, generated an even tighter community within our gym. And all of the whole group came to the Ladies Only Camp edition this year. So it was really nice to see.
Nice. And how many do you have in your ladies class in the academy?
In the academy, in the women's class, it fluctuates between 8 and 14. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, there's a fixed group of 8, and then of course people, not only women, come and go. But yeah, I definitely see the growth of the group over the year.
Fantastic. And they all come into the camp as well, which is again an added bonus. So just again, testament to the fantastic work you do in building the community. So that's pretty awesome. So, and then just the last couple of questions I have is in relation to, I know you also kind of have some decent relationships through, whether it's for the camp with the sponsors and stuff. So how do those relationships get cultivated? Again, you have some outreach with the relationships with the athlete. Does that help getting some sponsors on board, or is that helpful at all?
Yeah, that definitely helps. I've had one camp with Pion, and obviously she has a lot of sponsors. So they sponsored a gi for a raffle. And other than that, like I said, Kiren, he sponsors with the gym, which is a big help. Also, his and my sponsor for Acai came around, also to the Royal Camp. Yeah. Maybe you can say a bit about him.
Yeah. So it's a guy from Belgium. He runs 8 Days Acai. Started in 2010, I think, and it's just one-man army. He's pushing the everything. So he runs the whole company, but he's also really passionate about jiu-jitsu. So whenever he can help the jiu-jitsu community or the athletes that he sponsors, he always comes by and supports us with acais.
the purple gold. Yeah, we have an interesting episode coming out soon. So we just recorded it recently about acai. So that's I think people will hear a lot more about the kind of the whole business side of that. So that's pretty cool. So that's a wrap from me, guys. That's been awesome. Thanks very much for providing us with the insight. I said for me, in a lot of the cases I find myself in a similar circumstances as you, and it's always interesting to see how other people approaching kind of similar type of problems, because I can learn a thing or two, compare. So that's been amazing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners will find this interesting. I think a lot of the guys follow you, your journeys, whether it's with the academies or with the camps. So thanks very much for your time.
Cool. Yes, it was a pleasure. You
Thanks
as well.
for having us.